Some of my friends asked me to do a video on how to grow food and plant seeds. So this is a video to help, and I hope you learn something. Thanks for watching. Obviously, a disclaimer is that every single person does things a little bit differently, and I learn things all the time. These are just some things how I do things. Okay, so to start off, you need either some potting mix or some seed raising mix. So I just use potting mix, but you can get a finer soil for raising seeds. You can keep pots that you have bought things in before. You can do things like reuse containers. So this has got some fertilizer in it, but for example, you could use this as a pot. So you could cut the plastic container, make some holes in the bottom, and there you've got a container to do some seedlings in. There's all kinds of things that you can use. What I do is there's holes in the bottom, and so I usually put something in the bottom. So again, you can use what you've got. You can use perhaps even junk mail of catalogues that you've got delivered, or you could use paper towels. I've just got a notebook that I have used and I don't really need the notes in it. So I'm just going to get one of those notes. Scrunch it up, put it in the bottom, and then the reason I do that is that then it helps to hold the water in more. Still needs drainage, but when the paper gets wet, it will drain through the paper anyway. So not everyone does that, that's just something that I do. And then what we'll do is we'll fill the pot. I've filled the pot up, but I've left space because I'm going to put the seeds in the top. So depending where you live will depend on what you can grow in what month and what season, and you could either Google and see what is a good plant to plant at this point of time. It's April and it's autumn and it's a beautiful day, as you can see. So I've ordered some seeds specifically for planting at this time of year. So when you get your seeds, so I've ordered heirloom seeds. So heirloom seeds I personally like the best. My understanding is that it's the older style version of the seeds, and so they're tried and tested. Also, you can probably keep the seeds from the heirloom seeds more than seeds that have been treated. So some seeds you probably are aware of that you buy, they might have different chemicals on them to make them sprout. They might be genetically modified, and you might not be able to keep the seeds. So I usually get the heirloom ones. I find that they actually grow better, and they don't really cost that much anyway. You can just Google and find a place that sells them in your area, and then once you start growing, you can start to collect your own seeds anyway. So basically there's different kinds of plants that you can get as well. So there's annual and perennial. With annuals you plant them and then you plant them again. So you might keep the seeds and replant them the next year. Lots of the vegetables are annual, and you can also plant perennial. So with the permaculture research that I've been doing, perennials are amazing, and you can look into food forest and permaculture to learn more. Basically, the theory is that you want to plant lots of edible perennials because then you can plant the plants, and as they are perennial, it means that they keep going, and so into the future you have that plant that's growing and providing you with food, so that you don't have to try so hard. So some of these are perennials, the seeds that I've got here. Some of them are annual, and you could do some research on different edible perennials that you could plant perhaps as well. Okay, so I'm just going to take this spinach, and often on the pack it will give you the instructions of how to plant them. Again, I just usually plant them in the top of the soil, so I'll cut off the top of this seed packet, and basically you can see I've just kind of filled it up with the soil that much, and then I'll put the seeds in. So everyone probably does this a little bit differently. All seeds are a bit different in their size. If you can see those are quite big. So it's pretty easy to know that some of them are quite small, and you can kind of sprinkle them over the top. So I've just kind of dotted them over the top of the soil, and then I'll put the soil over the top. Okay, so you leave a little bit of a gap at the top because you want to keep the water in. You don't want it flowing over the top. So we'll water that. You also want to keep them moist. Now you could write in texture on the side what it is that you're growing, or you could write it on, this one's got a tag, I could write on the tag here. You can do things like cut up milk bottles or like that plastic container that I showed you and write on texture and make a little tag and stick in there. Okay, so I've just written on that. I'll just put that in there, and then that just reminds you what it is that you've planted. So there's all different types of spinach. There's all types of plants. So there's thousands and thousands of edible plants, and we only eat a certain amount of them if you shop and buy your food at a supermarket. So there's different reasons why we eat the foods that we do, and most of it's got to do with storage and also familiarity of the foods as well. When you grow your own food, it opens up the door to all kinds of different foods that you can grow, and it's quite interesting. So for example, this is a choco. Now choco, I'll just take it out so you can see it. Oh, that's if you can see. So this is a choco that I bought from the supermarket. I just left it on the side of the kitchen on a paper towel, and then you can see it started to shoot. So once it started to shoot, then I put it into the pot here. And choco is a vegetable that I hadn't really eaten before, and it's a perennial vine, and the choco itself, it doesn't really have much taste, so you can use it similarly to a zucchini. So once this grows, I'll put it on something to climb. I've also got the start of a ginger here. So with the ginger, if you buy a ginger from the supermarket or the fruit shop, just make sure that you soak it for about 24 hours. I soaked mine in rainwater, or if you do have filtered water, perhaps do that. And then that takes any chemicals that they've put on the ginger to stop it from growing in the shop. And I don't know if you can see, but it's got little roots starting to form here. Also, you can see I've chucked my vegetable scraps on the top there, so that's another thing I've learned from permaculture, is that you can do what's called chop and drop. You can chop the plants and put them back onto the garden. Can compost, I have got a compost as well, and in this example I've just put my vegetable scraps on the top, and that seems to be working okay too. Okay, so these are some seedlings that I grew. I put these in, wow, it wasn't very long ago, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, and they've already grown about this size. So the other thing to consider with seeds is that they all do take different times to grow. It'll take different times for the seedlings to emerge. It will usually tell you on the packet as well. And the main thing is that you want to keep the soil nice and moist. So I do usually raise my seeds in pots and get them growing, and then I put them in the garden. I found that I had the most success doing that. But you can also, with some seeds, plant them directly into the garden. So I like to grow them first as seedlings, and then I put them into the garden. So if you see about that size, that's probably ready to go in the garden. I could even grow them a little bit bigger than that as well. So I've just wet the seedlings there, and so when I grew up, I was told that helps to stop the shock of the plant going in shock when you replant it. just use a really gentle stream of water when you're watering them. You don't want the water to be really hard on it because they're just little plants and you could disrupt their roots if you use too forceful of water. So I've just done it, trickling the water over the top. Now these are little pots, but if you did have another type of pot, you could wet it and then turn it upside down, and I'll get one of these out and I'll show you how to take the seedling apart. So I like to use my hands because then I can feel where the roots are. But you can see here I've got a few little seedlings, and so if you use your hands, you just want to gently pry them apart like that. Keep the roots with them, and then we'll go plant these in the garden. After planting, I would put mulch on. So I'll just make a little divot. We've pulled apart one of our seedlings here, and we'll put it into the soil. Okay. So I like to make a little kind of well, and then the water will go into that seedling there. I've got a couple more, so I'll put these in as well if you can see. On your seed packer as well, it will say how far it is suggested to plant the plants apart, because different plants grow to different sizes. You can see I've got some peas growing here. The peas will put nitrogen into the soil, which helps the plants to grow as well. If you can see there, this plant here, that's a pak choi, and it grows a lot bigger than it does in the store. The other benefits are that it's healthier for you as well because you're getting it straight off the garden. I do tend to put mulch over the top of the garden once I've planted the seedlings, and then that helps to hold the water into the soil as well. You can also put manure, you can put fertilizers like worm juice and things like that in as well. The mulch is really helpful. So here's an example of a zucchini. You can see that this is going to grow really big, and so it's good to think of how to space your plants as well. So garden beds are quite good. You can just get cheap ones and then fill them up with soil. I usually put manure in, and then you can put mulch, and you can even put straw on the top to hold in the water more. But even if you started with herbs, so if you start growing herbs, you can grow those in pots, and then you start becoming self-sufficient in your herbs. And there's all kinds of herbs that you can eat. Some of them are perennial, like rosemary. There's parsley. There's all kinds of herbs that you can add into your food. They're really healthy for you. I try to avoid using any pesticides or insecticides, and I've noticed so many insects in my garden. Yesterday there was even a praying mantis in the garden. So if you do have weeds, you can pull them out. You can even use boiling hot water from the kettle if it's in a difficult area to get to, and that will help to kill the plant without having to use any chemicals. I tend to just leave the plants, and for example, the cabbage moths got into a cabbage and they ate them all, but I just leave it to nature, and the cabbages regrew anyway, so you don't really have to worry. It's all a part of the rich tapestry of the environment, I think. My garden's a little bit of a work in progress, but this is another idea for you. So instead of having lawn out the front, what I've done is I've covered this area with bark chips and growing some fruit trees. So I've already had fruit on the apples, and that was only planted about a year ago. So because it's such a young tree, I took most of the apples off and just left a couple, because then that gives it more energy for the tree to grow. So with the mulberry, this has already had fruit as well, and these are delicious. If you can see that, that's a pumpkin. So I'm growing pumpkins in my front yard. Now, what I've done, I dug out the area so that all the water falls into that. It's important to have flowers as well, so I've done all different flowers, perennials and annuals in here, and the flowers help to attract the bees for pollinating. So I'm still a work in progress with my garden, but definitely use mulch as well. A really good video to watch is Back to Eden, and he uses mulching. The mulching is amazing because it helps the soil, helps build up the soil, and helps you not to have to water, and it helps suppress the weeds as well. That will probably get you started anyway, growing your own food. You can obviously buy seedlings as well, and then you can just plant the seedlings too. You can plant in pots, you can even get vertical gardens if you have limited space, and you can do things like convert areas to edible food garden. And yeah, I'm going to keep adding to the garden as well. I hope that was good. I hope you learned something. Thank you.